what actually we are doing, we are looking to understand about Swagger and how to customize the documentation. So it is not a big deal. Just you need to know like how I can able to customize. First, let me open the application, and then we will try to just understand about.
Recording in progress.
So this is the application, and we will go ahead. Today, what actually we are doing is how to customize the documentation for this. Okay, just I'll talk about what are the annotations available in order to customize the documentation. So once it is done, then we'll go ahead and see about the actuator module. But first, let's complete this part. Okay, let's begin now. Okay, then we'll move on. I just want to open the REST controller class, and then we will see like how we can able to customize the documentation for this. There are a group of annotations. First, okay. We will see like one annotation called @tag. This can be used at, this is a Swagger annotation. Whatever annotations we are discussing now, and they are all called as Swagger annotations. And what is the use of the Swagger annotations? They are basically used to customize the documentation of the REST API. So we got already documentation, but that is a default documentation. But inside that, if you want to customize the documentation, then you need to know about some annotations. And those annotations are @tag. And this annotation that you can add at the REST controller class level. Okay, you can add this annotation at level. What is the reason behind it is just, you want to group the related operations under one tag. Okay, you can use this annotation to group the related operations under one tag. You can use it at the class level. Okay. Inside the class, you are having different operations. Like one is a save operation, other one is a fetch employee, other one is fetch all the employees or delete employee by ID. All these are different operations. You want to group them together under one tag. Just we can add some name, we can add some description. Okay. That is called annotation @tag. So this will appear in the documentation. So we will see how it is going to affect it. first initially what we are doing now, we want to run the application and we want to just get the default documentation. When you run this application, by default Swagger will create one documentation page. That is for documenting the REST API. The default document we can access, the page we can access, documentation page is accessible at a URL. What is the URL? Swagger UI/index.html. So I will just go ahead. And let me type the URL 8787 /swagger UI/index.html. Correct. This is good. Okay. Now, our requirement is what now? These are all the group of related operations. Correct. These are group of related operations. And I want to give a tag here. For that group of operations, I want to give some tag here. You see what's the effect of @ tag. Okay, right. First, I will do some settings. Like whenever I make any changes, I would like to automatically restart the server. That's okay. Automatically, I want to restart the server whenever. That is what DevTools dependency I have included. I think at some other place as well, I need to make changes. Editor, window. Hello, automatic restart is one of the option available. I'm searching for that option. It's not there. Okay.
ఇంకేం తినలే లేచిన ఇది క్లాస్ ఉంటుందా ఇడేమని చూడు మామూలు ఇది చూడు
there is an option available. The option is like
ఇది మామూలుగా ఫుల్ మీద మాదిరి కానీ అది
yellow automatic restart of the project. So that is what I'm searching for.
గుల్లలు దోమలు కొరుకునేటివే
ఫుల్ ఫిరే చూపించుకో డాక్టర్కి.
So that what happens when I make any changes to the code, automatically because of DevTools dependency, the IntelliJ IDE will allow the DevTools to restart the application without manually doing the restart every time. Okay, so that is what I'm trying to do here.
ఫుల్ పిరి అయితే ఇట్లా నల్లగా ఇంటికైతే చెప్పు
ఫుల్ పిరిలు నల్లగా అవుతాయిరా
Option I
చూడు మళ్ళీ డాక్టర్ కన్నా కానీ ఫుల్ పిరి ఈడ ఉన్నాయి
different IDs will have different options. Okay, just
అదేమన్నా జ్వరం అయ్యక వారినిక
ఏ ఫుల్ పిరిలు రావా ఒక తానొస్తే అట్టే వస్తావన్నా నాకేం ఫుల్ పిరి అనుకోను అసలు
మరి ఎట్లా ఆపేది
ఏం అసలు మనకేం తెలుస్తుంది అబ్బా
నీకుండే కదా ఫుల్ పిర్లు
నాకున్న ముచ్చిందా అని నన్ను ఇంకా రాలేప్ప ఎలా రెస్టున్నా ఎలా రెస్ట్ ఉంది
that is also we have searched for.
శేఖర్ రేట్ మాట్లాడుతున్నాడు రేట్
Build execution, deployment, compiler,
అంటే వాళ్ళు 17,000 అంటే
Directly
వీడు
click on
19,000
compiler.
అన్నాడా?
Build a project automatically. This option
ఏదో
available.
ఏమని
Just click on this one.
36,000 పోయినాయి.
I no need to expand the compiler. Just click on the compiler. Then it will build the project automatically.
38,000 సగం చేయి అంత పోయినాయి.
See, just I'm writing one annotation of the Swagger, and that Swagger annotation, what I'm writing is at a tag. At a tag is annotation, and here we can configure the name and description of the group. For example, I'm writing tag name is employees.
నాకు రాదులే.
38,000 సగం రాదా?
Description I'm writing. So description I'm saying that
19,000.
it is operations on employees.
18
అందరికి అట్లా చెప్తున్నారు అంతే.
19
Okay, this is customization. Let's see how it is put together.
మీ అన్నలే
ఎవరు మా ఆయన?
మారదొడ్డలే
Once the server starts, and from next time onwards, it will automatically restart.
నేను మాట యాది కరెక్ట్ లేదు వాళ్ళ పెట్టారంటే మనవి
Let me open. Let me open.
వాళ్ళది రియాక్ట్.
The Swagger documentation page once again.
కొట్ట ఉడదు ఎలా ఎట్టయినా మన దానికి ఇత్తనం పట్టుకుంటుంది వాళ్ళ మనవి పైన కనపడుతుంటుంది ఏదైనా పైరకి నీకు తొక్కరు పోయినాడు కొట్టకూడదు
Okay, server is not yet ready. Now the server is ready. What I can do now, I just want to open the UI page. Now you can see here. This is the name of the group. These are our related operations. We want to group them under one name. See the previous, and this is the description, operations and employees. You see the difference between the two pages. Here you got directly your class name, employee rest controller, because you did not done any customization. But now these are the group of related operations, and we want to give some name and description for the group of operations. So how it is possible to do that? It can be done with the help of this. Okay, it can be done with the help of this annotation. At the rate tag is annotation. Tag name. What's the tag name here? Employees. And what is the description I have provided here? Just employees, operations on employees. This at the rate tag effect. This is customization.
హైదరాబాద్
Next, coming to operations. This is called one operation. This is another operation. This is another. Like these are all the different operations. Post, patch, all the request types.
దగ్గర అయితే అట్లా హైదరాబాద్ కానీ
Now, individual endpoints are there here. Now you want to add a short message for each endpoint.
ఇంకేంలే ఒక సగం
At the rate operation is annotation for that. This is method level annotation. Okay, for example, I want to add here one short message called it is to fetch employee by ID. Okay, we can add short message and also we can add detailed message. Now see how it is going to affect. For example, I am adding for at the rate get mapping annotation is there for API/employee/ID, and what is the annotation I'm going to use? There is one annotation available called at the rate operation. That is a Swagger annotation. Let's go ahead.
ఏంటి
This is the endpoint.
నారందడి తెలియదు దుద్దాలైతే
The annotation what I'm writing is at operation.
పెళ్ళికి
And what is the use of this annotation? It is to provide or customize by adding a short message and a detailed message for a specific individual endpoint. At the rate operation, it has two attributes, summary and description. Summary means short message, description means detailed message.
వాడి చేసుకుంటా
Summary equal to get employee by ID. That is summary. It's a short message. Now description. Fetch employee details by ID.
ఎంత పడ ఇడ్లీ
So So this is short message summary. This is detailed message, for example. Now see how it is going to be affected. Now the server will automatically restart. You can see the server is automatically, I'm not restarting the server, it is automatically restarted. Because of DevTools dependency we have included. Now I can just go to my browser and just reload this page once again. Now you can see you got a short message. What is the short message? Get employee by ID. But when you expand it, now you can see the description of this. That's called detailed message. Fetch employee details by ID. This is called a summary. This is called a short message. This is called description, the detailed message. Fetch employee details by ID. Correct? This is how it works. Now, okay, we have like this. We can write this and this at the rate operation for every method. I mean, I do not want to write again and for each and everything to explain you. This is just only an information. This is annotation to customize each endpoint. You can give a short message and a detailed message. Summary means a short message. Description means a detailed message. That you can provide with operation. Not only for this endpoint, you can add this for each and every endpoint. For example, employees, you can add. Okay, right, get all employees. Right, fetch all employees from the database is a description. So you can write like that. Okay. So for example, I'm writing here at operation. Summary. Okay, summary is get employees. Description means the detailed message. Fetch all the employees from DB. Fetch all the employees from a database. Fetch all the employees from a database.
Yeah. Tadinada idle.
Got it right? That is called at the rate operation. So now,
తాత దాంట్లో ఛార్జింగ్ లేదా మరి ఒకసారి ఛార్జింగ్ పెట్టమని తాతని ఇది ఒకసారి మిస్ అయితే
because server is restarting. Because server is with us. Now server is restarted. You can see here /employees /API/employees. This is the short message. But now you can see this is the detailed message. Fetch all the employees from a database. Like this, we can add for each and every point. I no need to add to explain it. Next, only annotations I need to explain so that you can implement that. Next, you see the response status codes. We want to customize the response status codes. For example, here you are getting what 200 means okay. For example, you take get employee by ID. Okay, what is the response status code? 200 in the responses. What is the description? Okay. This is called the status code and this is the status message. These are default values in the document. But now you want to customize them. For example, if status code 200, then you can say that a message description you want to put here, employee retrieved successfully from the database. Employee is retrieved successfully from the database. You got it right? And you also want to add one more status code here, 404, which means employee not found. You want to customize it now. You want to add more status codes here. And you want to change the description for the status code. You want to define some message for description for each status code. Then you can use annotation called @API response. You have something called what? @API response. @API response, @API responses is there. API responses means it can be used to club the multiple API response annotations together. Okay, if you want to customize multiple response status codes, then we need to wrap this API response annotations into API responses. So there are two annotations I'm going to explain. API response, API responses. So we are going to the, for example, here I am. This is operation. And now the other annotation is @API, @API responses of value equal to. This is to wrap the API response into API responses. Now we can see @API response, @API response, right? @API response, and it has response code and description. Response code is equal to 200, and description, you can define the description. Some description, let's say employee successfully retrieved. Employee successfully retrieved. Okay, response code 200, description employee successfully retrieved. This is API response. Next, one more API response, @API response. Now, response code is equal to 404. I'm including one more new response code, 404. Okay, right? And the message description is 404 response indicates employee not found. Employee not found. Something. Now you got two more annotations here. One is @API responses, which is to wrap up the API response annotations together. The multiple API response annotations together into API responses. Okay, nice. So this is how we can able to customize it. So here what we are doing now, simply we are customizing. Okay, now server is restarted. Just we can go ahead and see the documentation page. Okay, now the documentation page is let's open the documentation page. Now you can see the documentation page here. Right, the documentation page. Just reload the documentation page. Now you can see here. Documentation page. Okay, you can see response code here 200. And what's the description that you got here? The description that you got is employee successfully retrieved. Employee successfully retrieved. That's the documentation, right? Now 404 is a new response code I have included, employee not found. Okay, right? Good. So this is to customize. Otherwise, you'll get by default 200 means description okay. Every status code will contain some description. The default description simply okay. And if you want to add more response codes in the documentation, and if you want to customize the description, then you need to go for annotations. What are the annotations available? One is API response, and the other one is called API responses. Next, if you look at parameter, this is a parameter, right? ID. But right now, you don't have a description for this. Parameter name is ID, but it does not have a description. If you want to customize and if you want to add some description for this parameter, you want to customize and you want to add some description for this. Correct? So then I should use one annotation called @parameter. Okay. So at the rate parameter is a parameter level annotation. These are all Swagger annotations. At the rate tag, at the rate API response, at the rate API responses, at the rate parameter. Next we'll see at the rate schema. Okay, these are the 5 important annotations of Swagger to customize the documentation. So I'll go here. So I'll be typing something like this. This is path variable. This is parameter actually. This is a parameter for this endpoint. We can customize, and how do we customize that? Add parameter. Okay, add parameter. And we have something for this parameter, which is the description. And we should define some description. But add parameter is having a conflict. So which parameter you want to import? One is from Swagger, one is from Hibernate. So we need from Swagger. The annotation we want from Swagger, but not from Hibernate. So choose the Swagger annotation, add parameter. So what's the description I'm writing? I'm including description like this now. Description like ID of the employee. Okay. So this is annotation to customize or to add some description to the parameter. Okay. Now this description will appear in the document. This will appear in the document. Let's go and check the document. Let's reload the page. Now we can see previously we didn't get any description, but now you got the description for what ID of the employee. Now you got the ID of the employee. Got it, right? Okay. Nice. That is called @ parameter. Next. If you look at this, the documentation itself at the bottom, you find schemas. Schemas, nothing but the model classes. Okay, that used in this REST API. The model classes used in the REST API. So what is the model class used in the REST API? That is called employee. Correct? It is a model class used in the REST API. That is called employee. Correct? Employee. Now just we expand it. Now you can see employee has fields like employee number, employee name, salary, department. But if you want to customize it, if you want to customize the fields, if you want to add some description for this employee, the model class, then we have to use annotation called @schema. Okay, right? So let's see how we can able to customize the models in the REST API. If you want to provide some documentation for the models used in the REST API under schemas, then we have to use annotation called @schema. There is annotation called @schema. Okay, I need to open the entity class. Right, entity class. Okay. Now what's annotation I want to use? @schema. @schema can be used at both class level and also can be used at field level. It can be used for customizing both, to provide a description, to add a description to the class, or even to add a description to the field. Then we can use annotation called @schema. @schema description, just you can say what is the schema, employee model. That's it. I can't add any much. Just it's an employee model. Now, how can we able to define some description for the field? Again, at schema. The same annotation can be used at a class level and method level at schema. And now this annotation has a description and example. So description, I'm typing description, unique ID of the employee. Employee number is a unique ID, so unique ID of the employee. We can also even pass example value. Example. Okay, 1001. Some example value, unique value of the employees, like that. And similarly, we can add for all the fields. For example, name of the employee, salary of the employee, department number of the employee. So just if I add for one field, then you can add for the others. Now you can see when I expand the schemas, employee is the schema, means model class or the class used in REST API. Description, we have included employee model. Let's say for employee number also there is a description. There is a description. The description is not appeared for employee number. For model it is appeared, but let me check once. This is that. This is employee number. Now it is ready because server is restarted now. Okay. Now you can see employee number, unique ID of the employee. That is a description. Example 1001. Okay, right. So you got you got the customization of schema and its fields. You got the operation status codes, and you also got to know the tag, that is to group the related operations under one description. And we have discussed about all these things right now. So far, we have discussed about annotations like @ tag. Then we have discussed at API responses, @ operation, @ parameter, @ schema. And let's see. Now this is called metadata of the entire API. Like it is by default given something like open API definition. Okay, by default it has given. This is called the metadata of the entire REST API. Correct? But now what is our requirement? Our requirement is we want to customize this metadata of the API. Right? We want to add some version. Okay, and we want to add the server URL. We want to customize this title. We want to customize this version. Correct. This is called the metadata of the entire API. And we have annotation for the open API definition. Open API definition is annotation. It is to define the metadata for the entire API. Okay? Right. Let's start doing this. But where should I write this annotation? I should define a separate configuration class for this. Let's say, for example, I'm going to create one configuration class. Okay. to define the metadata for the entire API, that I am going to use one configuration class. So what I do, I just go here, I just want to create one package. Let's say package name is config. Let's create a new package for config, for example. Create a new package and package name is config. Then we use a new Java class, and the class name I'm just trying to type. The class name is the class name which I would like to type is API config. API config. Okay, and here I'm writing annotation at open API definition. Okay, at open API definition, and it has an attribute called info, and this info is of type info. So at info is annotation again. Okay, it has an attribute called info, and it is of type at info. It is info type. Okay, now you want to change the title. So there is an attribute called title. Title is equal to let's say employee REST API endpoints. You want to change the title like that. Then you have something called version. Let's say this is my REST controller with version 1.1. Example, we can configure like this, version 1.1, v1 version 1.1. And you can add some description, say API for managing employees or API for employee management. Okay, title, employee REST API endpoints, version 1.1, description, API for employee management. Okay, right. And even we can also add some license URL, for example, license equal to, there is an annotation called at license. This license contains name and URL. So name, let's say, just I'm writing Ashok IT. URL, let's say http :/ashokit.in. Something I'm typing. Some URL. And I think so there are some other attributes. Summary, contact. Contact means again we should I think configure email ID. Terms of service, maybe, and you can go through that. Okay, first let us complete up to this. These are basically what I said, these are the different attributes. Title we want to change, and version we want to change, description we want to add for that, and some license link that we want to provide in the documentation. Let's see how this effect is going to come. but you have to define one separate configuration class, and this is a class level annotation, open API definition. This is to define the metadata for the entire API. Now let's reload this page. And now you can see open API definition is replaced with employee REST API endpoints. This is the metadata. And the version is 1.1. And you got a description API for employee management. Okay. And you also got a license link. And suppose if you click this, there is a URL configured for this. The URL configured is ashokit.in. When you click on this, then it redirects to ashokit.in page. Correct? When you click on that, you got ashokit.in page. So this is the API for employee management. So I think that you might have understood about. Annotations. These are all whatever annotations that I told, all these annotations. So the annotations that we got so far. Right. The annotations that we got so far. We got @ tag first. We have seen that there is annotation called @ tag. Correct? We have seen annotations like this. What are the annotations we have seen? We have seen annotation called @ tag. And we have the annotation called @ operation. Then we have something called @ API response. And to wrap them, we have @ API responses. Then @ parameter. Then we have seen at schema. Now lastly we got at open API definition. These are all Swagger annotations. These are the annotations of Swagger API. Okay. So, or we can say simply these are called Swagger tool annotations. And what is the purpose of these annotations is these are all annotations used to customize the REST API. Okay. These are all used to customize the REST API. That's nice. Now next, all these statements I will be providing it in the document now. I'll copy it from the other document. And then we will understand about what is actuator. So far we got Swagger. Now next we are going to understand about actuator. Okay. What is Spring Boot actuator? That's what next I'm going to explain. But before that, first I'll copy all these statements from the other document about these annotations. About these Swagger annotations. Okay. So, and as I said already, you can also test this. Okay, it will provide you the description about the group of endpoints, and you can even see example values, and you can see what parameters are needed. Here no parameter is required, but in the request body you must specify the parameter. and the request body should be JSON, and the JSON example value is like this, and the responses is going to contain like this. If the response code is 200, then description is okay, but we can customize it, and the example value is going to come like this. Okay, for each endpoint, and it is not only just providing the description, also it will allow you to try that endpoint. So now you can able to test the API endpoints either from Postman, that is an app. Postman app is available, and you can open the Postman and you can send request. Second option, if the documentation is prepared through Swagger, then you can open the Swagger UI page. This is called Swagger UI page, and from here we can see the description, documentation, and we can even test the endpoint. So Swagger will provide both. If it is a Postman, you can test the API endpoints, but it won't show any documentation. That's an API testing tool. But Swagger is a documentation, and even you can test the API. So first, let me open the document. So here is my previous session. I have given some statements here, Swagger 2, and what the dependency that also we have seen over here, and now we are trying to put all the annotations over here, customization annotations. So the document, the statements I'll copy from the other document which contains these annotations. So these are all the annotations. We can customize the documentation with the help of Swagger annotations. Tag is annotation. Next, operation is annotation. API response and API responses, parameters, schema, and open API definition. Okay, right. Now next we are going to start our discussion to understand something called a Spring Boot actuator. Okay, what the Spring Boot actuator do? There is one module in Spring Boot called actuator module, or there is a dependency called Spring Boot starter actuator. Right. What this Spring Boot actuator do? It is very simple. It will provide some predefined actuator endpoints. And what is the purpose of them? It will allow us to monitor or inspect our currently executing Spring Boot application. With the help of those endpoints, we can inspect or we can monitor the application that is currently being executed. So what is the meaning of monitoring the application means? We can get the metrics. We can get the metrics. We can get the health check. We can get the configurations, and we can get some runtime details of the application, like how much memory that the application has consumed, how much total memory is available, how much free memory is available. So we can get the health checks and metrics, the configurations, the runtime details, of the application. That is called actuator module. Okay. So health check in the sense whether application is healthy, is it connected to its internal components like databases or cache servers, or is it, it is in a healthy state to handle the request or not. That is called the health status of the application. That we can get through actuator module. Of course, actuator will provide lot of endpoints, multiple endpoints it provides, with which we can inspect the currently running application. You don't need to writing any code for that. Okay, there is a module given by Spring Boot only. Just you can add the support of that module to your project and it will do everything. Let's see how we can do that. That is called Spring Boot actuator module. Okay, right. And for the other word I told is metrics. Okay, metrics, I mean, they are some, what we can say, they are some quantitative values. Like how much memory space is currently available in units, like in bytes. Okay, how much free space available, how much memory is consumed, how many, connections, how many connections are in the pool and how many connections are used, this kind of information. Okay, that is called metrics. Now we can call JVM metrics, connection pooling metrics. They are quantitative values. So that we are going to get through actuator module, metrics module. That is called metrics endpoint. Of course, we are going to see. It also provides various other details like what are all the beans currently in the application context. In the Spring container of this application, what are all the beans registered? All the registered beans in the Spring container will be shown. And we can even get mappings information, like mapping in the sense which URL, which path, application path is mapped to which request handler method. Okay, right? That is called the all request mappings in the application. These are all the information that actuator module will provide, which is currently in running. So how can I come to know about the metrics, the health checks, and other details, the configurations and all of my application? I no need of writing any code for that. Just there is a module provided by Spring Boot that is called actuator module. You add the dependency in pom.xml and it will enable some actuator endpoints. You can hit them and you can fetch the data. Okay. So let's see. Just a minute. So, okay. Let's see first. We'll open the application and we'll go to form.xml file. We want to open the form.xml. And in the form.xml, just we are going to add one dependency. The dependency is actuator dependency. Okay, let's say for example, let me add one dependency here. Dependency Spring Boot starter actuator. Correct? Spring Boot starter actuator. Got it? Spring Boot starter actuator. This is the dependency. Spring Boot starter actuator. This enables actuator support or actuator module in our project. And whenever we add this dependency, then it will add some actuator endpoints to our application. Along with our endpoints, our REST API endpoints, we get additionally actuator endpoints. So basically actuator is nothing but it's a group of some endpoints. So which will help us to get the metrics, nothing but we can get the what we can say diagnostics of our application. Okay. Okay. Means with the help of actuator, when the application is running, while the application is running, we can just get the details like whether application is healthy, is it able to handle the request or not, it is connected with its internal components or not. We can observe them. We can observe them and we can diagnose it, and so that we can take the actions.
7:40.
Okay, right. So let's see. I have added actuator endpoint, right? Now I just want to go to my browser and I will type all actuator endpoints are going to start with /actuator. Suppose if I type http localhost 8787 /actuator ACTUATOR actuator /help. It will show only status. Localhost 8787. Sorry, first time to start the server, 8787 is not running. So let's start the server. Let's start the server and then we have to open the browser. Now we can able to send a request actuator /help localhost :8787 /actuator UATOR, correct, actuator /help. Now static resource found actuator /help. Oh. So we will just check why it is. We have added the actuator dependency, sorry. The reason why actuator dependency I have added, but it's not synced with Maven, right? Generally, when you add any new dependency in the form.xml, what we have to do, we need to sync it. So that's why it is saying that no static resource found, means there is no URL like that. Let's stop the server. And these are new dependency which have included. What the dependency have included? That is Spring Boot starter actuator. Correct? These are dependency. But it is not synced with, right? It is not synced with the IDE. Okay, now we are going to sync it. You will get a Maven sync icon there. If not, you can just go to this Maven icon and click on the sync. Sync Maven project. Yeah, it is done. Now I can start the server. Okay, now the server is started. Now just go ahead, open the browser and type the URL. http :/ localhost : 8787 /actuator /help. You can see it will show the status. It checks how the status will come, like up or down. It checks whether DB connections are working or not, or if any cache servers if connected. In our example right now, no, but if yes, then it checks whether it's connected to the cache server or not, disk space is available or not, and based on that it's going to give me the health status, like up or down. So health status up means okay, this server is ready to accept the traffic. If the health status is down, then it cannot handle the traffic. Now just we got the message called what? Status up. Okay. How does it decide and gives the status up? This endpoint returns status up, this response. Okay, we can test even the same endpoint from Postman as well. Okay, and if I open, for example, if I now open Swagger documentation page, 8787 Swagger UI index.html. Okay, now you can see this does not include the actuator endpoint. These are my application endpoints. Okay, but this the documentation prepared for our REST API does not include or contain actuator endpoints, because actuator endpoints only for backend application developer to know about his application while it is running, about its metrics with health and all. It is not for the clients. So this documentation is prepared for clients, and the client can open this document and can find out what are the group of endpoints, REST API endpoints, and he can just open one endpoint. He can see what type of input should be provided and what type of response will come back, what are the example values, and even he can try that. But actuator endpoints are for the application developer, the backend application developer, and while application is running, he can get to know about, he can diagnose the application. When application is slow, or when application is facing an issue, so he can diagnose that issue during the application is running. And how he can able to do that? For that, the Spring Boot has provided an actuator module, and that will provide some set of actuator endpoints and that endpoints will provide the health checks, metrics, and all. So that's the first thing. And now back to the actuator endpoint. It will only show the just status like up, down. Actually, what it checks whether application is successfully connected to database or not, disk space available or not, is it connected to any cache servers or not. If there is any connectivity, then is it successfully connected with that component or not. Or if this is connected with any other services like mail server, messaging server like that, then is it connected or not. So that information it will first check, and based on that it will result the status up or down. If you want to get those details also, individual component details like when it's connected or not connected, then we should go to configuration file, that is application.yml file, and in the YML file we need to add one property. Now I'll show you the property. There is a property that we need to add, so that we'll get the complete details of health. Let's go to application.yml file. Here I'm adding one new property. The parent is management. Management is parent. Management dot see, two spaces, endpoint name of the endpoint is health. Management dot endpoint dot health dot show details. And put the value always. You can see this is the property management dot endpoint dot health dot show details. Management dot endpoint dot health dot show details, value always. Correct. Now where I did change? No, I made a change in my configuration file, that is application.yml file. Now let me go and check. Okay, let me go and check by reloading this. Now we can see here you got the components, more details, right? Not only just status up or down. Okay, at the last you got the status up. At the end you got the status up, right? You got the status up. But before that you can see the components. Okay, so DB is one component, disk space is one more component, liveliness state is one component, ping is a component, readiness state is a component, SSL component, and groups. That groups I don't know, but okay. Components DB details, database is MySQL, and validation query is valid, it's working. This is a query executed to check whether MySQL is connected or not. Status is up. Individual component, DB component status up. Okay, this is about DB, disk space. These are the details. This part is details. We can get these all endpoints. These are all HTTP GET endpoints. Actuator endpoints are GET endpoints. So we can test these endpoints even from browser or from Postman as well. Okay, no problem. Even we can open the Postman and we can type this URL. Let's open the Postman. Let's type the URL. The URL is like HTTP colon double slash localhost colon 8787 slash API slash actuator slash help. And you can just click on send. Now you got the response. The same response. What response we got there? The same response. Details, components, DB, database MySQL, status is up. Disk space. This is in bytes. Total disk space is this much in bytes. In that free is this much. Okay. And in the free, if the disk space threshold is this much, means acceptable limit. Then after that you should add the more disk space. The free threshold acceptable is this much. So currently we have a huge free bytes. And this is the path of the application in the machine. Disk space exists or not? Yes, true. Space exists, status up, like this. And you can see, right now we don't have any SSL connection, HTTP yes. In security level we'll see that, but right now we don't have that. Unless status is up. Earlier we got only the status up, but after adding this particular configuration setting, management dot endpoint dot health dot show hyphen details always. Right? So this is the application.yml file. Next, like this is one endpoint, but actually it has multiple endpoints. Let's say for example, consider I want to get all the beans that are available in the application context right now. Okay, I want to diagnose what are the beans that are currently in the application context. So there is an endpoint like this, HTTP colon double slash localhost colon 8787. I can type something like this, slash actuator slash beans slash actuator slash beans. Now when I say for example, when I click on send, I'm getting 404 not found. Actually, by default, when you add the actuator dependency, only the one endpoint enabled is health. But if you want to enable all other actuator endpoints also, then we should add a property that will enable all actuator endpoints. And the property is management dot. This is endpoints, not endpoint, endpoints. Management is the parent. Subproperty is endpoints, not endpoint. Endpoint is different subproperty, endpoints is another subproperty. Endpoints, and each subproperty is where and it has a subproperty called exposure. Management dot endpoints dot web dot exposure dot include. Let's say the value is asterisk. Okay, right. So server is restarted, but I got some kind of error here. I'm not restarting the server. When I make any changes, automatically server restarted because of DevTools dependency, which helps us to enable. So I got an error. Actually, the error is I should keep the star in single quotes or in double quotes also is okay. I can keep star in double quotes. Okay. Now the server is restarted and okay, this is not any error or exception, just it has given some kind of warning. That is not a problem. Server is restarted. Now we can open the browser and we can execute all the endpoints. Beans, metrics, we'll see them all in the next section. But right now I just want to execute this endpoint called beans. By default, only health endpoint is enabled. But if you want to enable all actuator endpoints, then we should add this property. Management.endpoints.web.exposure.include. And what endpoints you want to include? Star. Star means every endpoint. Each and every endpoint. And now you got our context is CRUD REST. Context means our application. And under our application container, there are beans. Now you can see a lot of beans are there. These are all the beans that are currently in the application context.
Back end internals depth
These are all the beans currently in application context.
Basically, website అనేది HTTP request visualize చేయడానికి. For example, ఇక్కడ మీరు observe చేస్తే ఒక client machine ఉంది, ఒక Spring Boot లాంటి ఒక server.
Okay, type means that bean class. It is from Spring Framework. Spring Framework boot server, servlet, endpoint management, context configuration.
మనం visualize చేయొచ్చు. So first ఇక్కడ client machine చూడండి. దీంట్లో ఈ Chrome.
Okay, this is thread pool task executor. It is from Spring Framework.
కొట్టగానే
This is a bean. Bean means type means class. This is simple metrics export auto configuration.
ఆ bytes అనేవి socket buffer లో.
This is a data web properties like that. These are all the beans, different beans that are in the currently running in the application context. Now you can test all the actuator endpoints. We'll be discussing the session tomorrow with some other actuator endpoints. First we'll complete that.
మన Spring Boot Tomcat server రన్ అవుతుంది. అది ఏం చేస్తే
First we'll complete all the other actuator endpoints. Then we will see what is
పెట్టిన తర్వాత ఆ bytes ని పాస్ చేసి HTTP
Spring Boot cache.
దాని తర్వాత ఆ bytes ని ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ లా కన్వర్ట్ చేస్తుంది.
Okay, so how do we connect? How to use
వెళ్ళాలి అని చెప్పి రూట్ చేస్తుంది.
Redis server
ఆ రిక్వెస్ట్ ని ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేస్తుంది. ఎగ్జిక్యూట్
as a cache provider
కదా
for our application and how to integrate our application with the Redis cache.
ఆ bytes ని మళ్ళీ మనం అవుట్పుట్ బఫర్ లో పెట్టాలి.
After this actuator, we will enter into the
నుంచి ఆ bytes అనేది
caching in Spring Boot.
సాకెట్ బఫర్ నుంచి TCP/IP స్టాక్ వస్తుంది.
Okay.
దాని తర్వాత
Let's meet on tomorrow.
ఇంటర్నెట్ లో మళ్ళీ రిసీవ్ చేస్తాం.
Thank you.
సో ఇక్కడ అబ్జర్వ్ చేస్తే ప్రతి స్టెప్ లో కూడాను బైట్స్ అనేవి మనం ఒక బ్లాక్ నుంచి ఇంకో బ్లాక్ మూవ్ చేస్తాం. సో అక్కడ ర్యామ్ కన్జ్యూమ్ అవుతుంది, అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం CPU సైకిల్స్ కూడా కన్జ్యూమ్ అవుతాయి అన్నమాట. సో ద హోల్ పాయింట్ ఏంటంటే నువ్వు ఏ టెక్నాలజీ తీసుకో లేకపోతే ఏ ఫ్రేమ్వర్క్ తీసుకో, క్యాష్ కానీ డేటాబేస్ కానీ మెసేజ్ కానీ వీటన్ని పని ఏంటి, ఒక రిక్వెస్ట్ తీసుకోవడం, దాన్ని ప్రాసెస్ చేయడం, రెస్పాన్స్ ఇవ్వడం.
Recording stopped.
పని చేయడానికి మనం డిస్కస్ చేసి చాలా స్టెప్స్ రిపీట్ చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది అన్నమాట. సో ఏం చేస్తామంటే దీంట్లో ప్రతి స్టెప్ అసలు ఎందుకు ఉంది, అది ఎన్ని CPU సైకిల్స్ కన్జ్యూమ్ చేస్తుంది, ఎంత ర్యామ్ కన్జ్యూమ్ చేస్తుంది, దాన్ని ఎలా ఆపరేట్ చేయొచ్చు అనే థింగ్స్ని ఒకసారి ఆలోచిస్తే మీకు బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ మొత్తం కొంచెం ఈజీగా కనిపిస్తుంది అన్న. బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ ఇంటర్నల్స్ డెప్త్లో నేర్చుకుందాం అనుకుంటున్నాను, ఏమైనా రిసోర్సెస్ చెప్పు. నీకోసం ఒక మంచి వెబ్సైట్ తయారు చేసాను ఒకసారి. బేసిక్గా ఈ వెబ్సైట్ అనేది HTTP రిక్వెస్ట్ని విజువలైజ్ చేయడానికి అన్నమాట. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇక్కడ మీరు అబ్జర్వ్ చేస్తే ఒక క్లయింట్ మెషిన్ ఉంది, ఒక స్ప్రింగ్ బూట్ లాంటి ఒక సర్వర్ మెషిన్ ఉంది అన్నమాట. ఇప్పుడు క్లయింట్ అనేది సర్వర్కి ఒక కాల్ చేయగానే అసలు ఆ బైట్స్ అనేవి డిఫరెంట్ హార్డ్వేర్ కాంపోనెంట్స్తో ఎలా ట్రావెల్ చేయొచ్చు అని చెప్పి మనం విజువలైజ్ చేసుకోవాలి. సో ఫస్ట్ ఇక్కడ క్లయింట్ మెషిన్ చూడండి, దీంట్లో ఈ క్రోమ్ యూజర్ నేమ్ పాస్వర్డ్ ఎంటర్ చేసి సబ్మిట్ కొట్టగానే మీ రిక్వెస్ట్ అనేది ఫస్ట్ ఒక బైట్స్గా కన్వర్ట్ అవుతుంది. ఆ బైట్స్ మనం ఫస్ట్ అవుట్పుట్ బఫర్లో పెట్టుకున్న తర్వాత ఆ బైట్స్ అనేవి సాకెట్ బఫర్లోకి వెళ్తుంది. దాని తర్వాత TCP/IP స్టాక్ యూజ్ చేసుకొని ఆ బైట్స్ మనం ఇంటర్నెట్లో పంపిస్తాం. దాని తర్వాత ఆ బైట్స్ అనేవి మీ సర్వర్ మెషిన్కి రీచ్ అవుతాయి. అక్కడ ఉన్న TCP/IP స్టాక్ ఆ బైట్స్ని రిసీవ్ చేసుకొని సాకెట్ బఫర్లో ఆ బైట్స్ని పెడతారు. దాని తర్వాత ఇక్కడ అప్లికేషన్ లేయర్లో టామ్ క్యాట్ సర్వర్ రన్ అవుతుంది. అది ఏం చేస్తుంది అంటే ఆ బైట్స్ని తీసుకొని ఇన్పుట్ బఫర్లో పెడతాం. పెట్టిన తర్వాత ఆ బైట్స్ని పాస్ చేసి HTTP రిక్వెస్ట్లో పాస్ చేస్తాం. దాని తర్వాత ఆ బైట్స్ని ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్లో కన్వర్ట్ చేస్తుంది. దాని తర్వాత అసలు ఏ కంట్రోలర్కి వెళ్ళాలి అని చెప్పి రూట్ చేస్తుంది. రూట్ చేసిన తర్వాత ఆ రిక్వెస్ట్ని ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేస్తుంది. ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేసిన తర్వాత మనకు రెస్పాన్స్ వస్తుంది కదా, ఆ రెస్పాన్స్ మనం సీరియలైజ్ చేస్తాం. సీరియలైజ్ చేసిన తర్వాత ఆ బైట్స్ని మళ్ళీ మనం అవుట్పుట్ బఫర్లో పెట్టుకుంటాం. పెట్టుకున్న తర్వాత అవుట్పుట్ బఫర్ నుంచి ఆ బైట్స్ అనేది సాకెట్ బఫర్లోకి మూవ్ అవుతాయి. సాకెట్ బఫర్ నుంచి DCYP స్టాప్కి వస్తుంది. దాని తర్వాత ఆ బైట్స్ మనం ఇంటర్నెట్లోకి మళ్ళీ రిసీవ్ చేస్తాం. సో ఇక్కడ అబ్జర్వ్ చేస్తే ప్రతి స్టెప్లో కూడాను బైట్స్ అనేవి మనం ఒక బ్లాక్ నుంచి ఇంకో బ్లాక్ మూవ్ చేస్తాం. సో అక్కడ ర్యామ్ కన్జ్యూమ్ అవుతుంది, అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం CPU సైకిల్స్ కూడా కన్జ్యూమ్ అవుతాయి అన్నమాట. సో ద హోల్ పాయింట్ ఏంటంటే ఏ టెక్నాలజీ తీసుకో లేకపోతే ఏ ఫ్రేమ్వర్క్ తీసుకో, క్యాష్ కానీ డేటాబేస్ కానీ మెసేజ్ కానీ వీటన్ని పని రిక్వెస్ట్ తీసుకోవడం, ప్రొసెస్ చేయడం, రెస్పాన్స్ అవ్వడం. సో ఆ పని చేయడానికి మనం డిస్కస్ చేసి చాలా స్టెప్స్ రిపీట్ చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది. సో ఏం చేస్తామంటే దీంట్లో ప్రతి స్టెప్ అసలు ఎందుకు ఉంది, అది ఎన్ని CPU సైకిల్స్ కన్జ్యూమ్ చేస్తుంది, ఎంత ర్యామ్ కన్జ్యూమ్ చేస్తుంది, దాన్ని ఎలా ఆపరేట్ చేయొచ్చు అనే థింగ్స్ని ఒకసారి ఆలోచిస్తే మీకు బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ మొత్తం కొంచెం ఈజీగా కనిపిస్తుంది. అన్న బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ ఇన్ఫ్లుయెన్స్ డెప్త్లో నేర్చుకుందాం అనుకుంటున్నాను. ఏమైనా
అందరూ ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కడ చూసినా CSK గెలవాలి, SRH గెలవాలి, ఎన్నిసార్లు కప్ నమ్మది, RCB గెలవాలి, MI గెలవాలి. నోట్ గెలుస్తుంది. నీ లైఫ్లో నువ్వు ఎప్పుడు గెలుస్తావు. అందరూ ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కడ చూసినా CSK గెలవాలి, SRH గెలవాలి, ఎన్నిసార్లు కప్ నమ్మది, RCB గెలవాలి, MI గెలవాలి. నోట్ గెలుస్తుంది. నీ లైఫ్లో అందరూ ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కడ చూసినా CSK గెలవాలి, SRH గెలవాలి, ఎన్నిసార్లు కప్ నమ్మది, RCB గెలవాలి, MI గెలవాలి. నోట్ గెలుస్తుంది.
వీడియో అయిపోయిందా? ఇంట్లో ప్రెజర్ కూడా స్టార్ట్ అయిందా? సో ప్రెజర్ ఎందుకులే, నేను ఇప్పుడు ఒక వీడియో చెప్తాను. సో దాని ద్వారా ఇంటర్వ్యూకి వెళ్ళి జాబ్ తెచ్చుకోవచ్చు. సో కంపెనీ వచ్చేసి టెక్వేవ్. ఇంటర్వ్యూ డేట్ వచ్చేసి 18th ఏప్రిల్. సో లొకేషన్ వచ్చేసి ఖమ్మం. సో కావాల్సిన క్వాలిఫికేషన్ ఏంటంటే మచ్చా, బీటెక్ లో సివిల్, ట్రిపుల్ మెకానికల్